Welcome to MuffinTalk.
Kia ora and welcome to MuffinTalk. Today we are celebrating 10 years of MuffinTalk, 10 years of our 30-minute radio program every Friday morning. Many of our listeners today are listening to the program via the internet. And since some of the more than 500 interviews are also available on YouTube, we have listeners who tune in whenever and wherever they like. For this 10th anniversary, I've put together some snippets that show the variety of these interviews. As I have now done a few recordings of Best of Muffin Talks, I have chosen some snippets for this special edition that have never made it into these recent collections. This shows how difficult it is to choose snippets for special occasions. Here goes the anniversary collection.
There are many different forms of meditation. The form that I was formed in when I was a student was very different from what I practice now. It was very much what we call mental prayer, thinking about God, thinking of a gospel passage, imagining oneself within that, and imagining what God would be saying to me. So very much a mental process. Whereas this practice that I follow now is, we call it prayer of the heart. And the essential aspect of it is just letting go of all thoughts, and doing so by the praying of a mantra or prayer word. And the particular prayer word that we use, or that is recommended, it's not essential, is the word Maranatha, which is really the most ancient Christian prayer.
So what is the mantra in the Christian world?
The mantra, it's a prayer word, simply. And just the simple repetition of this word. And naturally, one prays, when one is still, distractions come flooding in. And as soon as one becomes aware that one is distracted, the teaching is to simply go back to just listening to this word. And gradually it leads to a greater stillness. And the recommendation is that one does this twice a day, early morning, and at the end of the working day, prior to eating. Yeah, it's no good meditating on a full stomach.
What makes Wings Trust so special?
It is special. It isn't a treatment centre as such, like there's other treatment centres in Auckland. So what happens is we get people in pre-treatments, so they come to us before, so they sometimes go to detox. So
can you tell us a little bit about what is a pre-treatment, what is detox?
Okay, so detox is when for some people, if they are dependent on alcohol or drugs, particularly alcohol, then they go to a detox centre. There's one in Point Chev here, which is a medical detox, because it can be quite dangerous coming off those drugs.
What made you choose this profession as an addiction clinician and to be so passionate for it?
Because of my own personal experience of being in recovery and the connections that you make with other people in recovery, because it's hard for other people to understand addiction unless you've been in it.
So also you are more accepted.
Yeah, because people, once they hear that you've had your own personal experience, they're more likely to share their experience with you because they know that you can understand.
So you are a sign of hope also?
Yep. So it's about giving back to the other people, the other addicts,
Kiribati is located right on the equator in the Central Pacific. You can find Kiribati northwest of Hawaii. So when you go to the map, when you see the map, of course, you will see a dotted atoll highlands, 33 atoll highlands altogether.
33 islands?
Yeah, 33 atoll highlands altogether. And only 24, 25 of them are habited by people.
So 10 of these atoll islands are not inhabited?
That's very true, yeah. And we have a population of about over 102,000 people altogether. In Kiribati, the weather is summer all year round. At 6 o'clock, at 6 o'clock in the morning, the sun rises. At 6 o'clock in the afternoon or in the evening, the sun sets.
What makes Kiribati really so vulnerable, and its inhabitants, of course?
Yeah, you're very right. We are the very forefront of the climate change impact. Our atoll islands are only 1.5 meters above sea level.
1.5 meters?
Yeah, that's very true. And we are very vulnerable to water sea rise due to the effects of climate change that is eroding our foreshores. Many houses and crops, especially the food and water, have been damaged.
What do you grow in Kiribati?
Most commonly coconut trees, pandanus trees, breadfruits. Breadfruits. Yeah. We have some crops that are kumara, and many others. But unfortunately, these crops or the foods are being eroded by the water sea rise, affecting many of the other islands, especially in the South Island. During the king tides, that's when it is very severe, because the water comes on the land. People have to relocate where they live, and they have to move to the inwards. They have to live in the center of the land, because living near the beach is not safe, because the water sea rise is there.
Are there any hills or?
No, Kiribati is flat. As an atoll island, all the atoll islands are flat. And as I said, it's only 1.5 meters above sea level.
So when a big wave comes?
Yeah, you can say that. When the big wave comes, yeah, that's it. Our future in Kiribati is not certain, because Kiribati will disappear from this planet due to rising sea level. And I always come back to that, due to the rising sea level. And the question is often asked by a lot of our people, who is responsible and how can we make the difference? I guess that the international community has a big responsibility to help combat the effect of climate change, and also to help smaller nations in the Pacific, especially Kiribati, that we are becoming victims now.
I can't connect with that person, if that person can't connect with me, it's probably not going to work. So I think building those relationships is the most important. The second component of Jenny Bell Oranga is when we talk about whakamarama, like enlightenment, and for me that's passing on those social and emotional resilience skills so that they can empower themselves. And the last one being whakamana, which is empowerment, where they can, empower themselves to be the best version of they can.
So when you're talking about empowerment, are you only thinking of those who might be referred or who already struggle in some way, or also, are you also building up resilience for people who might not have any problems?
Absolutely. So we can run these programs in different ways. So we could do a targeted, work with targeted students or adults who really do need these. They're going through a time of emotional distress. Or we can run them like I call the universal approach. So that would be if I was running it as a whole group or going into a whole classroom. There'd be some kids there who are naturally emotionally and socially resilient, and there'd be some kids there who aren't. But what we do know is that life is full of ups and downs, and we all need to know how to face those downs. I suppose when I'm explaining it to the children, I get them to imagine a basketball, and I said, if I have this basketball and I throw it at a wall, what will the basketball do? And they'll all tell me it bounces back. And then I'll say to them, if I puncture that basketball and let out my sear and it's flat, this time when I throw it at the wall, what will happen? And they'll tell me it'll just go flat, it'll just hit the floor. And so then I sort of explained to them, well, that's how we're like. When we're feeling resilient, when we come up against the wall, and the wall might be a problem or a challenge or something difficulty that we're facing in life, if we're resilient, it might knock us for a bit, but we're more likely to pick ourselves up and carry on. Maybe talk to the people, our support team to get some help. But if we're not feeling resilient, we're like that basketball, that flat basketball. And when we come up against that challenge, it just knocks us off our feet, and we find it difficult to pick ourselves up. And those are the sorts of things, that I see that we all need, because we all face ups and downs. And when I'm working with like 5-year-olds, I'll say to them, have you noticed life's like a roller coaster? Sometimes it's happy, and sometimes, how many of you have had ups and downs? And they all put their hands up.
A 5-year-old?
5-year-olds, I know. At my age, I go, wow, once you get to an adult, you've got all these other things. But in context with their lives, they've already noticed some ups and downs. And so, we do need to have resiliency, and it's a continuum. Life, we don't stop having ups and downs when we get older. In fact, we know there's a high depression rate in our elderly as well, so we all need to be resilient for life.
Can you tell us, what is a shofar?
So a shofar is a ram's horn hollowed out to be the original brass instrument of the planet. I mean, this was the first, as far as I'm aware, it's the first brass instrument that was ever played. Possibly the only other contender I know of is the conch shell as a similar aged brass instrument. It wasn't until we reached the metal age that we started making brass instruments out of metal. But it's a ram's horn. And if you read the Bible, we have the Battle of Jericho. They blew the horns and the walls came tumbling down. Well, what were those horns? Those were shofars. Mm. And if in the Old Testament you read about all of the great festival events were heralded by the blowing of the shofar. The shofar called people together and started and completed each of the major festival events. And what survives today is the blowing of the shofar for the High Holy Days, the Yamim Norayim. There's a special period from Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, to Yom Kippur, the Day of Reckoning, the Day of Atonement. And in this time, in Judaism, you are only allowed to ask God for forgiveness for our sins against God. If I have wronged you, I cannot ask God for forgiveness. That's out of the question. I have to apologize to you and ask you for forgiveness. And when I have made amends with you, and I have settled things with you and restored the space between you and I've apologized to you, then I can go to God and say, God, I made a mistake by causing that problem in the first place with Beati. And that was a sin against you by offending one of your beautiful creatures. Okay, I have made it up to Beati, and now I wish to ask you for forgiveness. Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of what's called the Yamim Norayim. It's a period of amnesty. So on Rosh Hashanah morning, the gates of repentance open. And legend has it that the longer I hold the Tekiah Gedolah, so I blow the shofar, that is the opening of the gate, that calls the opening of the gates of heaven. The longer I hold the Tekiah Gedolah, the long note at the end, the wider the gates open. Be able to let go, forgive, make amends, get things right. And then at the end of Yom Kippur, the longer I hold the final note, the longer the gates hang open for just one more prayer to come through.
How you came from being a full-time musician in England to becoming the co-vicar of the Anglican parish of St. George's Epsom in New Zealand, the other side of the world.
Yeah, sure. Well, it's a surprising story, not least to me, because I had no Christian upbringing whatsoever. In fact, I was quite anti-organised religion, anti-Christianity. But when the band finished, and this had been a 20-year journey.
What was the name of the band?
The Quads.
The Quads.
So we had a hit record in the UK, but then we carried on for 20 years. My two brothers, we had a few almost but not quite to make it in the big time. So when it came to an end, I was feeling fairly bit of a failure, really, that we'd invested all this time and energy into this, and it hadn't really come to the fruition we were hoping for. So I guess I was in a place where I've always been a seeker and a searcher spiritually. As I said, though, but I didn't see Christianity certainly as the vehicle for that journey. In fact, the last song, one of the final songs I ever wrote, was called Feel the Need for More. So I think that was a little bit of a clue that I was searching. And then one day I was at the kindergarten gates waiting for my 3-year-old daughter to come out, and I got talking to a fellow dad who was waiting for his son. And we got on really well. We had a love of sport and real ale. And after a couple of weeks, I said, "What do you do for a living?" And he said, "I'm a priest." And I was, whoa, I've never met a priest before in my life. He was an Anglican priest at a church called St. Martin's, which is right in the city centre of Birmingham, along with the cathedral and the Catholic Church. These are the 3 big churches you can't miss in the city centre. A very long story made short, over 3 years, Ian kept inviting, or shall we say, strongly trying to persuade us to come to a thing called Alpha, where you explore faith. And over a 3-year period, we kept dipping our toe, myself and my wife Kim, into this strange new world of church and Christianity. But I really feel the hand of God was in it, because it was a beautiful church. It had a strong homeless outreach, because homelessness in city centres tends to be huge, and they had a really great ministry for that. So I think I saw the beautiful side of Christianity, and I actually saw the power of community and compassion to bring healing and restoration and transformation to lives, including my own. And I guess that's what really drew me in.
Soon after Baha'u'llah's declaration, the founder of the Baha'i faith, now he remained a prisoner for nearly 24 years until his passing in the district of the prison city of Akka, which is in the northern area of modern-day Israel. Now, this was the furthest place he could be exiled within the Ottoman Empire at that time, from his place of birth in Persia, modern-day Iran. Now, for nearly a decade, he was incarcerated within the prison walls of this Akka prison. And eventually, over time, he won the hearts and the respect of the local authorities in the area. He was gradually permitted on occasion to briefly visit places outside of those city walls. Now, understanding his confinement to a prison cell for so long, he had obviously been deprived of seeing the beauty of nature that he, in fact, so loved. And so his eldest son decided, out of his love for his father, to rent and eventually purchase, in 1881, a garden just outside of the city walls. Now, after much effort by family and friends, it became a place of great beauty, with flowers, trees, and shrubs, and a variety of colours and smells, such that when he saw it, he declared it paradise, or in Farsi or Persian, Rizwan. Water and fountains in particular have always been an image referred to in the Baha'i writings and prayers as a metaphor for an endless source of something continually flowing and pure. And so be it for our love for each other, purity, generosity, acts of giving of our time, effort, or our earthly resources. The Baha'is have put a lot of effort into beautifying its holy places. In fact, one of the places that in Haifa, which is some 20-30 minutes drive from Akka into the city of Haifa, there is the administrative center. And part of the work my work there, I built a 1-kilometer garden from the bottom of the mountain to the top of the mountain. When we built it, it took us 9 years to build the garden and some administrative buildings with marble-clad. I'm actually having an opportunity next to this Rizwan garden. There used to be an orchard where there was fruit trees that would provide to the community there. And a decision was made to build the shrine for Abdul Baha, who is the eldest son of Baha'u'llah, who is the person who bought that garden.
Emma, you were born and raised in Samoa, and you have a great passion for the English and the Samoan language. How did this journey start?
This journey started in Samoa at home, where we spoke Samoan, and in school, where we learned English. I enjoyed listening to whangongo, or oral storytelling in Samoan. And then when I went to school, most of the stories were written in English. So I was very keen, together with other students, to learn how to read in English in order to read stories and books. My mother also used to take us to the Nelson Library, which is the only public library in Samoa, to listen to the librarians, and they read from books and translated into Samoan as we went along page by page. I went to St. Mary's Primary School, Tavalalo, and after that to St. Mary's College by Moso. These schools were run by the SM Sisters, or Missionary Sisters of the Society of Mary. Many of them were from overseas, from Western countries, New Zealand, some Australia, USA. Even there were some older ones in my time at my Moso, that would be the 1970s, seems so long ago, from Germany and France. I have to also remember that missionaries were responsible for a very high literacy rate in Samoa, almost 99%, because when they came with the Bible, they made sure that everyone could read the Bible, and the Bible was also translated into Samoan. The missionaries from all denominations are responsible for that very high literacy rate in Samoa in the 1900s.
Where did you get your inspiration from, your day-to-day work, or the wealth of English, from the day-to-day work, or from the wealth of English authors? You were mentioning Shakespeare and others.
Both, actually. I get inspired by local, regional and international authors. What they write about can give me an idea for a story. Then I would work on it in my own way, with my own context. Again, as I said before, there are universal themes and commonalities. For example, I wrote a story for children about death of a grandma in a Samoan family. Teenage girls piercing their ears so they could wear earrings in Samoa. Story about Christmas in Samoa, riding a bus with a pig destined for a wedding feast.
So you're an observer and then you write it down, is that right?
Yeah. You said, okay, just get it together and then try and find some good words to write well, and so that people can enjoy an incident and relate to it. Like, oh yeah, that does happen.
So can you tell us in a few words, who was Sri Guru Nanak?
Okay, very briefly, Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji was the founder of the Sikh faith. The three pillars of his teachings were about to earn an honest living, to recite the name of the name of God, and to also share what you had. So in Punjabi, it's Kirat Karna, which is earn an honest living. Naam Japna is recite the Guru's words, and Vanshakna, which means share.
I think that your religion is about 500 years old. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. And it's actually one of the newest, when I say newest religions.
But sometimes you hear Guru Nanak and sometimes Sri Guru Nanak. What means Sri?
Sri is the starting point, is like almost when you say His Holiness. When we say Shri, what we're referring to is we're saying godlike. Sri Guru Nanak Dev Ji is something that we reserve that word Shri as a starting title for people who have got a much more holy title to their name. Shri Guru Nanak Dev Ji, Shri Guru Gobind Singh Ji. So basically, all our gurus, the starting title is Shri.
There are 10 gurus, is that correct?
That's right, 10 gurus. So starting with Shri Guru Nanak Dev Ji. And when I say gurus, those were living gurus, but now we believe that our Guru Granth Sahib, which is our holy book, is the last testament guru, our last guru. In other words, he is our guru for now. Basically, from 1 to 10, although they were living human beings, and now our guru is actually our holy book, which has all the teachings and a combination of all of the teachings from all those 10 gurus.
The other day I had this wonderful celebration. Well, you invited everybody to the Aotea Square. You had singing and prayers and free food, and there was kirtan and langar. What are these two terms?
The fundamentals of going to any Sikh temple or any religious functions that we have, we always have kirtan, which is basically live singing of hymns. when I said to you that the 3 pillars of Sikhism, and certainly the teachings of Shri Guru Nanak Dev Ji was about those, sharing and Nam Japna and to earn an honest living. And so that event that we did last week, we felt it encompassed all of those 3 elements. So the Kirtan was the live langar. The langar basically means blessed food. Anything that is blessed with prayers, we call it langar. So Guru Nanak's free kitchen. So we are basically, everything we do, we serve in Shri Guru Nanak Dev Ji's name. And so that event last week was about giving langar to anybody who wanted it. So it doesn't have to be the homeless. It could be anybody who needs a meal.
So the origin is from the Fatimi culture, which is the daughter of Prophet Muhammad, Fatima, and her sons, and that's how we take our lineage from.
It's fascinating that you are taking it from a daughter of the Prophet.
That's correct. Yeah.
Does that have an impact?
Play a very important role in Fatimi culture. So
the women in your congregation will be very proud of it, right?
They are very well respected, very highly, placed in. A lot of them are entrepreneurs as well and business owners here in New Zealand as well, who are doing quite well for themselves as professionals, as entrepreneurs. Yeah. Even though we might be professionals, we are still going back to our roots of business. It could be as a professional or as a trader or a service provider.
When I met you last time, you talked about not loaning money. And if you are professionals and you're starting a new life in New Zealand, this must be very hard to continue with this tradition, isn't it?
It is, yeah, it is. So His Holiness Sayyid Mufaddal Saifuddin, who is the head of the Dawoodi Bohras, was the spiritual father of our community, who resides in Mumbai. There is a system in Islam called Qardan Hasana, which is mentioned in Quran as well. So Qardan Hasana is a good loan. So people, when they migrate to these countries or any assistance is seek, so His Holiness would at times, mostly provide, if a family is needed, then they would receive a Qardan Hasana to set up their family's system. No form of interest is permitted in the community.
This is certainly also a way to bond the community together and to be a strong community.
Yes, it is. Yeah, there are many levels to it and many layers to that. And yes, one of them is definitely strong bonding in the community. It's about fostership. So His Holiness has promoted fostership a lot within the community. It's so that the idea is being presented by him, his father, and his grandfather, is that when you give a person in fostership, make him so strong that he is able to not only help himself, but he's able to help someone else.
So far, the anniversary edition of MuffinTalk, 10 years of MuffinTalk. The first broadcast was on the 11th of April, 2014.
Out there, heroic peace is calling. In the bonds of love we meet. For the world a new day dawning, and shines a light to greet. We're singing, this is the day when the hope was calling. This is the day when the light did shine. This is the day when the world can sing. Can you hear the cry for the wounds to be healed? Can you hear the call for this light to reveal? Oh, a vision of hope and peace for the tears in our hearts. I'm saying, 'cause this Yes, and can you hear the call of the prophets who see? Oh, where justice and mercy and peace are the songs in our hearts.